Hey everyone, today we're working on a DIY window kit for this Whynter dual hose. The reason I'm doing this is the plastic window sleeves that we've got, we're missing one side of, and instead of like tearing the house apart trying to find out where it is, I decided to go ahead and do a DIY build. So that's why this video is going to be made. Hopefully you get something out of this, gives you some ideas and gives you some thoughts. Most importantly, saves you some money or gives you a better option for sealing off these hoses in the window to minimize outside hot, humid air introduction into your house. So let's get started. So what I've done so far is this board here, this piece of plywood, is 34 5/8 inches wide, and I left it just the way it is. I trimmed it down once already. I may trim it down again because we're looking for the snuggest fit in the window, but not too loose. I do have some window or like AC round foam I'll be putting in the corners of the windows. We'll get to that here in just a minute. Gonna make up for some of that gap and also to seal below and above. This is just temporary, but I still want to do the best thing that I can. You never know when I might need it again. The holes I'm gonna cut, I've centered them based on the panels in my window. And I want the exhaust and the suction, I want those as far apart as I can because I prefer not to introduce anything to where, let's say the left-hand side is exhaust. If they were really close together, the exhaust would be close to the intake, and I could end up with some aspect of the hot air coming off the condenser just basically circulating, and I don't want that. I want the air as fresh as possible, not already preheated. So I went as far apart as I could on those. I've got a 4.5 inch hole saw that I'm going to use. 4 3/4 would have been even better because the holes I think are just right at about 5 inches, just slightly under. 4.5 is what I had around here, so that's what I'm going to use. The other option you have too is once you mark your center, you could also put the ductwork, place it on here, trace around, and then you could get a big drill bit and punch a few holes in, or a hole in big enough to get a jigsaw blade in, and then use a jigsaw to cut that circle out on both sides. They're expensive. I think that was about 35 bucks when I bought it. This will actually be the first time I used it. I bought it a while back for another project I was working on. I didn't end up using it. So it's a little pricey, but depending upon how you want to do on this and what route you want to go, it may be what will work for you. So let's get into drilling the holes. I just use a big C-clamp on my table saw just to kind of help hold this board in place, because you don't want this going, when it starts to cut, you could end up with that force trying to wing the board into you or out of place, and then you lose what you got going on here. So that's what I'm using for stability. A lot of torque on this. I already got the first one cut, but I just want to give you an example. Kind of get that lined up. See how that grabbed like that? And you want that blade to stay as straight up and down as possible. All right, let me see if I can set this up so you all can see what I got going on. Sorry, the C-clamp is kind of blocking the view, but you at least get an idea how this is going. All right, so we've got the 2 holes drilled. I've already measured everything out there. I'm gonna dust this off, run it upstairs real quick, and just kind of check for fitment. Because the next thing that I'm gonna do is actually give this a coat of paint before I attach everything on it. What's left is just screwing the hoses on there. So I wanna get this a coat of exterior paint on it. I'm just using rattle can paint. Again, this isn't permanent. This will probably be up for a week, maybe a week and a half. Then I'll be done for now. I can always add a better exterior coat later. So let's go check fitment. All right, so what you can see here is I'm all the way in on that one side there, but I am just barely able to get in on that side. So that tells me, I just have to take like a blade's width off on this side, and that should fit right in there, because the issue you have is you've got a gap on the inside, so you don't want to cut it for the inside width, but if you cut it for the outside width, then it's going to be too short. So you got to find that happy medium of where you can get the board in, like I did. I put this in first, and then brought this over, and that's the this little gap I've got on that side. So it's just a little bit snug, and I'll be able to push that in there, and then I'll have wiggle room once that gets inside there. So let me go trim that up. All right, now that we trim that up, we are basically at 34 1.5 for the overall length. So I remove the end pieces that snap in via these little tabs. Here, one on this side over here, 180 degrees out. Those are what snap into these little slots here in the hose. Pulled it out, centered it up, screwed it on there. Yeah, the screws ahead were a little bit too long on this side, throwing this together. The other side were perfect. I think those were 1/2-inch screws, and these over here I have were inches. But I just snugged them down enough to visually see that plastic just start to bend and end, and then I stopped. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to get that in the window over here. Here's the foam I used. Here's the size. Large gaps. Oh, crap. 5/8, that's 5/8 inch by 20 feet. This comes in this rolled stuff. I'm just using scissors to cut it. And I put a little strip down on the bottom there. I'll kind of tuck it in a little bit underneath the board more. And then I want to get some of that foam tucked in along the sides too. I'll get this kind of centered up in here and then work that foam down in there. So here's what I did. I just pulled the sheet of plywood to the right and then tucked that down in there. And then I'll cut another one about the equal length, but then I'll pull this board that way to give it a good snug fit while I stuff the foam down on that side. So that's all I did there. It was easy enough to just pull it to the right and then stuff that foam down on that side. Now I'll get another piece to come across the top that will sit up against the window up here when it comes down to give a good snug fit when it comes down. What I did to help with this, because this is not a flat foam, I brought the windowsill down just enough so that I'd have a little bit of friction. Then as I tuck this in through here, it'll hold in place until I push the window down tighter like I really want it. Now what I'm going to do on the bottom is I'm going to get a flat tip screwdriver, or you could probably use a butter knife, and take that foam and kind of work down in there and then press it underneath there till I got a good airtight seal down there. All right, so we got that all in there. What I found is if you start from one side and kind of work your way down, and it is a little bit easier, and you can actually take that. I'll try to demonstrate a little bit here. I'll go this way. As that foam is laying down on the sill, you can kind of use the serrated edge on the knife and push down just a little bit on the foam, and then kind of, guide it underneath. It'll kind of grip it a little bit. Just don't push down in there to cut it. All we got left to do now is connect in the hoses, get the unit plugged in, and get some climate control going on the house here till I get the HVAC fixed. All right, we're running. Cold air coming out. Got the condensate line in. I'll have to keep an eye on to make sure that that's actually a watertight seal down there. That's not going to leak out the back side under the floor. Put a pail down there because then I'll be emptying out some water. But yeah, that really worked well. Really worked well. Worked better than what I thought it was. And again, this temporary solution, you could modify this in a way to be a little more permanent. Might get a little block of wood under the top there just to kind of keep pressure slightly down. It's not a security issue. This is second floor, so I'm not worried about that, but I don't want anything to go goofy with this running and any kind of vibration. Eventually, I don't know, doing something goofy over there with that wood, or the foam gets a little less tight and snug and the things kind of kick out, and the board would kind of fold in a little bit. So I'll just keep an eye on that, keep everyone updated. And so anyways, I hope this helps somebody out. All in all, if I'd had all the tools together, probably would have taken me hour and 15 minutes or so. As it was an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. Once I kind of had the plan in my head, I've seen some other people do very, very similar things on YouTube, so I certainly can't take credit for the idea. This is just my take on it. If you got any comments or questions, drop those down below. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. I'd love to have you come along the journey as we work on things in the driveway and around the house. Have a great one. Ciao.